All right, good morning, everybody. Today is Daf Pei Beis Amud Aleph. We left off two lines from the top. We were discussing, we had a quote regarding Rabbi Yehuda. He was clarifying the opinion of the Mishnah. So he said, Gufa, we'll just read from the top line, we'll see what we're talking about. Amru Shuban Levi, Kol Makom Shama Rabbi Yehuda, Emasai, Ubameh, the Mishnah Seinu, any place where Rabbi Yehuda comes in our Mishnah and he says, Dvar Murim or Emasai, when are these words said? And he's clarifying a previous opinion. Eino ela lefarish divrei chachamim. He's only coming to explain the chachamim. He's not coming to argue. He's coming to explain this. In other words, they say, right, X, right, and he's saying, oh no, let's say in our Mishnah, right. So they said, right, you could only make an eruv with someone's consent, and he comes in and he says, "B'medvar murim," right? Be'eruv tchumen. That's only with tchum. You need someone's knowledge because then they have to decide which way they're going. But if it's eruv chatzeros, that would be okay. So he's explaining. He's not arguing, right, on the chachamim. Rather, he's explaining the chachamim's opinion. Rabbi Yochanan Omar Emasai lefaresh. So if it says the word Emasai, that is coming to explain. Ubameh, however, it says b'medvar murim, that's coming to argue. Look. The Gemara asks, "I Emasai lefarish." I is Emasai coming to explain. It's not going to argue about time. They're in a Mishnah. The Elohei Hapsulim. These are the people who are apostle edus. These people cannot go ahead and testify because we see by their lifestyle, right? Hamasachi bekubia, one who is a gambler, right? Person who's a gambler, right? He's not really trust things in this world. Things are sort of up in the air. He doesn't really take money and those things seriously. Malavi beribis. And a person who lends money on interest, a person who also raises similar to Masach Kubi, a person who a gambler, right? He races birds, the Seichre Shvis, and also people who go ahead and they plant on Shemitah, right? And they work during then. So so that's the first opinion. And Rabbi Yehuda, Emasai, when do we say this? And I was he's coming to say this expression Emasai. Bisman Shein Lo Umnos Ela This is only when let's say a person's a gambler, right? He doesn't have a job. He doesn't have a job, and therefore, really, he's busy. He's involved with gambling, and the issue with the gambling is an asmachta, right? The person does not know the outcome. He's it's his best guess, and since he's only guessing the outcome, so therefore he's an asmachta, and therefore, if you would lose, right, he gives away his money, but he doesn't really really give away his money, and therefore it's an issue of Gezela. He's involved with Gezela, and therefore that's not fit for testimony. So Rabbi Yehuda says only we're talking about he doesn't have a job. But if he has a job, if he's a regular person, he just has a side gambling habit. Shalohi hareza kosher. But however, if he has another job outside of this, then it'll be okay. Elahi ubeid sheyesh leumnus shalahi hareza pasal. Then we see over here that the Chum say whether or not he has a job, a person who's mistach bikuba is pasal edus. So you see over there that Rabbi Yehuda says a Masai, and he's coming to go ahead and argue. Chum say he's always pasal, and Rabbi Yehuda says no, it's only if he's unemployed and he's an unemployed gambler because that's his income. So Mara says no, that is not the Rabbi Yehuda. Hahi Rabbi Yehuda, the Rabbi Yehuda Rabbi Tarfoni. That's the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda Tarfon. And how do you know that? The title in the Bryce on Rabbi Yehuda, Mishum Rabbi Tarfon. Rabbi says name Rabbi Tarfon. Liyelam ein echad mehen nazir. A person, two people are sitting there, and the person says, "Okay, I will become a nazir if that person walking by is a nazir. They don't know who it is, or the next person that walks in the door is a nazir. I'll be like that person." So they don't know who's coming in next. So therefore, that which they declare, right? They do not. They're only relying. It's an assumption. It's not something that's said, right, explicitly, because they don't know. The person could walk in, could be a nazir, could not be a nazir. So he said over there. Said Rabbi Yehuda said in Rabbi Tarfon, "Liyelam ein echad mehen nazir." No one's a nazir. Lafish ein nazirus ela hafla. When nazirus only has to be clearly, a person has to make a 100% statement. And if you don't make a statement which is 100%, then you can't be a nazir, right? You can't say I'm going to flip a coin, I'm going to become a nazir if it's A or B. You can't do that. Alma cave in the misvakale e nazir ilo nazir who let me shtav in afshay. So you see over there, since he's a mesupik, whether or not the next person walking through the door will be a nazir, which will trigger his condition that if that person walks in as a nazir, I'll be a nazir. So therefore, since it's a suffix, therefore he's not really making himself a nazir, right? He's lo mishtabe nafshe, right? So too over here. So halchanami, so in our case, kevad lo yada, ikani lo ikani. So too in a case of a gambler, right? We see the gambler, since the person doesn't know, right? The person doesn't know, and therefore he's not makna. So therefore, that's the opinion. It's not the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda and the name of Rabbi Tarfon, because we see over here that just like in the case of Nazirus, if he's not 100% sure it doesn't work, so to Masabi Kubi, it doesn't make a difference if he has another job or not. Therefore, he would not be going makna, and therefore it's not our Rabbi Yehuda, who we say normally when it says Amasai is Lefarish. That's different Rabbi Yehuda. That's Rabbi Yehuda b'shem Rabbi Tarfon, who in that case the Amasai is arguing on the Chamim, and we say, and therefore it doesn't contradict that which we said about the word Amasai or Bameh when it comes to Rabbi Yehuda, because it was a different Rabbi Yehuda. It was Rabbi Yehuda b'shem Rabbi Tarfon and Harjan Allah Chalon. Now we finished the finished the parak of Chalon. We should return to you. Mitzvah next time. Mazel tov, everybody. Eruvin, not a small feat, very difficult Masechta, very difficult prakim. So Mazel tov, and now we will continue to go on to the eighth parak of Eruvin. So the parak starts off.
Keep trucking.
Right, we'll keep on trucking. So Keitzad Mishtatvin Tchumen. How is one Mishtatev with Tchumen, right? Tchumen, remember, like the Gemara is all over the place, or the Mishnayos, right? Tchumen, we're talking about a person's Tchum Shabbos. He's only allowed to go out, either he has his entire city, or if he's in a smaller place, it's wherever you are, plus 2,000 amos in each direction. That's his Tchum Shabbos. If he wants to go ahead and basically extend it, he can extend it either direction, but you have to go ahead and basically start your Shabbos a little, let's say not where you're at. You put food 1,000, to the east of you, and therefore you can travel 2,000 from that, right? So, this is for any people who live in my city, right? Whoever wants to go to the base Avel, because let's say the base Avel is 2,500 amos, east of them, right? So he has to place an Eruv at least 500 amos, right? 501 amos to the east of him in order that they basically can go there, and then from there another 2,000 amos. So he says, whoever wants to in my city, who wants to go to the base Avel over there, or wants to go to the base Hamishta, or to the party house, or to for the Sheva Brachos, or for the Chasana, v'chol shekibel alav mibad yaim mutter. Person, right? He was informed of the Erev Tchumen. He's makabel upon himself. Okay, yes, I will use that Erev Tchumen. So he knows he's aware of it on Friday. He's makabel upon it on Friday. Then mutter, it's mutter for them to go use. However, if the person didn't know about it and says, "Hey, by the way, you're going to the base of Mishta," and he said, "Oh, I can't go to can't go to the wedding, right? Shabbos started already. It's too far. It's 2,500." He says, "No. They set up Tchum before Shabbos, and you tell me Friday night. I can't go, right? Because you can't go ahead and decide or make your Erev Tchumen after Shabbos." So let's see the Gemara. Zak the Gemara. Amar Rav Yosef, Ein Ravin Elo leDavar Mitzvah. You can only be ma'ariv for Erev Tchumen for Davar Mitzvah. Right? Samai Kamash Malon, right? Tanina, right? So you see over here that the Tchum Shabbos, right? This is brought down. Machlokas actually how to understand this Gemara, but the Tchum Shabbos, as Rashi points out, right, is the whole only reason for the Tchum Shabbos is for a Davar Mitzvah. But if it's just stam, you want to take a spatzir, one way or another way, maybe you're according to Rav Yosef, you can't do it. Same Rav Yosef, Davar Mitzvah. Kamash Malon, Tanina. We say L'kol mi sheyelech lebeis Avel lebeis Hamishta, right? So our Mishnah says, a person wants to go to Beis Avel, right, to be Menachem Avel, is a mitzvah. A person wants to go ahead and go to Chasna, is a mitzvah. So it says the mitzvah. It's not, the Moshe said, or Chedemilsa Ktani. Maybe it's only, maybe those are examples why people go, but maybe a person can go for any reason. So Kamash Balon.
Since when?
What's that? Kamash Balon.
Wait.
A person can only go.
Since when can we go to a Beis Avel on a Shabbos?
Right. So, right. So,
maybe the same thing. A Beis Hamishta for a Chasana. We don't have Chasanas on Shabbos.
Right.
So, how about Mohel? How about Mohel? A Mohel.
Right. So Mohel also. Right. So those are all Davar Mitzvah. Eddie's asking like this, right? sort of thinking, right? We know person doesn't sit shiva on Shabbos, right? So why is he, so what is the necessity? Where is this mitzvah, right? Or Beis Hamishta, right? So Beis Hamishta, you could say easy. You could say that they used to go ahead and, they would get married on Friday. Money, so they have their Suda Friday night, so that was still considered part of the chasana, right? That they would get married on Friday or use the Friday night meal as the Mishnah. So that maybe could be the mitzvah there. So what about Beis Avel? So it could be either he's not officially be Menachem Avel, but he's going there. Maybe that's still sort of a mitzvah, even though he can't be Menachem Avel on Shabbos. Or maybe it could be before a person wants to be somewhere right after Shabbos, right? Or maybe right before Shabbos, he's there right before, and he has to be able to get back. So maybe in that circumstance, maybe also using that Tchum Shabbos in order that he can be there the moment after Shabbos starts. But I hear you saying, good question. Fine. So v'chol shekiba love mi b'yayim. So now, then we say a person who's makabel only if he hears it. Remember, put yourself on mute so there's no background noise. We say v'chol shekiba love mi b'yayim. A person who's makabel the tchum, erev tchumen before Shabbos, that works. So ein breira. Maybe let's learn from here ein breira, because what is breira? Remember, breira is something basically you could say retroactively, right? Retroactively, the erev would have worked, right? I would have, since I want this erev now on Saturday morning. You can say this erev would have worked for me. Friday before Shabbos, right? Retroactively, so that's breira. But if you're saying that it doesn't go backwards, you have to know about it first. It must be ein breira. Because if not, because we see this Shabbos morning, he was happy with it. So why don't we say breira? It goes back. So Ravashi, he doesn't say that he knew about it and he was accepted. But maybe he was informed then. If he knows about it, but he only decides later, maybe then that could trigger breira. So it's not a proof against breira. Maybe it could be that he was told it was Erev Tchumen and he didn't decide upon it. Shabbos morning, he says, you know what? I'm going to go there. I'm going to go east. I'm going to use the Erev. So therefore, maybe breira kicks into effect because I knew about it. There, what you knew about it will say I also knew about it and approved of it back then on Friday. And Amar Ravasi, all right, new sugya. Cotton ben sheish. If you have a cotton, he's 6. Yeitzei be'erev imo. A child who's 6 or younger, right? He depends on his mother. So his mother did a tchum Shabbos, right? Now, can she go ahead and walk with the child? She have to tell her children? No. So some 6 or younger basically goes along with the mother. Since the mother was makabel, accepted this tchum Shabbos, this erev tchumen, so to her children. So Meisvei asked Ukasha, we're going to ask specifically on the number 6. Meisvei called in Shesech Le'imo Yotzei Be'eruv Imo V'Shein Tzerech Le'imo Ein Yotzei Be'eruv Imo. A cotton who relies on his mother, he can use the eruv of his mother, the eruv tchumen. And the one who does not rely on his mother, he's more independent because he's older. He does not go to eruv Imo. But Tanan Nami Gavi Sukkah. So we learn by Sukkah Ki Gavna. Similar case, cotton Shein Tzerech Le'imo Chayav Sukkah. A cotton who does not no longer needs his mother, then he's obligated on Sukkah. But obviously one who does need his mother, he's too small of a child. Really, the mitzvah of sukkah is not, on him. They ask, so what is a cotton that does not need his mother? So they said in the name of Rav Yana, right? Anybody who goes to the bathroom and his mother does not need to go ahead and clean him. All right, so that means he's independent of his mother. And Rabbi Shimon ben Lakish Aimer, kol shenir ve'enu karima, right? Person who ima, right? Kara'ima, right? So whoever wakes up and does not, the first thing he does is cry out for his mother. So the Gemara says, Ima, so that's about cry for his mother, right? Or yell out for his mother, Mom, right? Meatloaf, right? So right? Even the mother, right? Even older kids, even call for their mother. So Ella, Ema kol shenir mishnah. No, the Eina kaira ima. Rather, someone who wakes up and he doesn't call mother, right? Until she answers the door, comes to him, right? So that is an older child. So someone who's older who doesn't wake up and calls his mother and keeps calling until she comes, that is considered to be someone who's independent. Uvekama. Now here's the punchline. How much is that? Kvar arba v'kar chamesh. Either 4 or 5. So you see over here, 4 or 5. So 4 or 5 seems to be the number and not 6, right? So l'chayr, this is a kasha. So this is over here. Right. So let's just remember who says what. So the original statement was, because we're going to get into it on the next on the Amud Beis. So Rav Asi was the one who said the age of 6, and then we asked the kasha on him from this case, and they said this is the Bei Rabbi Yana. Fine. All right, so he says he's 6. So the Gemara says, so turn the page. Amar Rav Yeshua B'rei Dravidi. So it's a kasha. You just said before 6. Now look, this Bryce says 4 or 5. So Rav Ashi Breid Ravidi. So it says Ki Kamar. So now Rav Yeshua Breid Ravidi says Ki Kamar Rav Asi Ki Gon Shiriv Allah Avi Litzafon Ribadoro. So is that no? If you have a situation, there's a special situation. It's not every situation is 6, right? Only this situation. Why? What's the situation over here? His father says, we're going to go to the north. We're going to go to the base of Mishnah. And the mother says, no. We're going to the south. We're going to the base of Ovel, over the south. So we don't know which one. So which one is the child included in? So if in such a case, a child basically still goes with the mother. So then in such a case, if there's one in each direction, then the child will go. But if we're just talking about stam, a mother makes it to go to the south, then the child's not included. But if the child is 6 years old and it's either to go with the mother, to go with the father, that's when the child is included with the mother, right? Because even a 6-year-old also goes still by his mother. So Meisvei has a kasha kan shetzarich leimo yaitse be'erev imo ad ben sheish. So a katan, right, who needs his mother, right, goes with his the heir of his mother until, right, 5, but not 6, until the age of 6. So tiyufta the Rav Yeshua bar Idi tiyufta is a tiyufta and Rav Yeshua bar Idi, because Rav Yeshua bar Idi just explained that no. The case over there, a 6-year-old only needs it, right? If it's the case of mother and father, over here we clearly see that he's always included with the mother. So Gemara says lema tiyufta to Rav Asi. Let's say it's also tiyufta Rav Asi, who said to the age of 6, right? So Rav Asi ad viad b'chlal. What does it mean when it says ad ben sheish, including ad viad b'chlal? It doesn't mean up to, right, 4 or 5 and not 6. It means including 6. 6 is included, says Rav Asi, and therefore it doesn't argue with me. It actually proves my point. So lema tiyufta to Rabbi Yaniv Reish Lakish. If that's the case, let's say it's a kasha of Rabbi Yaniv Reish Lakish, who explained the case of 4 or 5. So over here, it says beferish that you have to be even until the age of 6. You're included with your mother's erev tchumen. So the kasha had isei avua b'masa, had la isei avua b'masa. If the father is in town, right? If the father lives in the same city, right? He has 2 parents. So then the child is not as dependent. He's more independent. So therefore, even 4 or 5. So therefore, even 4 or 5, he can go in the sukkah, right? He's a little older. He has more independency. But if he's an only child, or he's a child, only a single parent, just his mother in town, then he's more dependent on his mother. All right, he's a little more babyish, right? And then since he's a little more dependent on his mother, therefore, even the age of 6, that was the case. We said that he follows the tchum of his mother. Fine. Tanu Rabban, new case. So, Tarabanan Ma'ariv Odom al Yedei Beno Ubito Haktonim. So, a person is Ma'ariv, a person al Yedei through his son, right, and his daughter, Haktanim al Yedei Avdo, right, or he goes ahead and so he can be Ma'ariv, right, for his son and his daughter, or his Eved or Shivcha Knanim, Bein Ladaitim, Bein Shlodaitim, whether or not they know or not, because since they are younger, right? Since they are younger, the children, or his Eved or Shivcha, they're not Jewish because he owns them, right? So then he doesn't need to inform them, because since they're basically, part of him, he owns them, he's responsible for them. So therefore, that which he made tchumen and he knew about it covers them. But not if they're Jewish or they're Jewish slaves or maidservants, nor his children who are older. Or for his wife, unless they are aware of it before Shabbos. And Tanidach, we have another brayso that says the same thing. And says over there, just like the second part first, a person should not make an eruv, not for his sons and daughters who are older, and not for his Eved Shivcha who are Jewish, and not for his wife, but only if they with their consent. But he can go ahead and make an eruv for his Eved and Shivcha who are not Jewish because he owns them, or with his children who are minors, who are younger, whether or not they know about it because he owns them. The chulan she'eruv and all these she'eruv, the eruv alein rabban yaitzim b'shel rabban, and all these people, right? If their master made a made a eruv for them, right? It says yaitzim b'shel rabban chutz mina isha mipnei sheichol limchos, right? All the ones, those ones are responsible for them, right? The father, the mother, it seems to be repeating what we have to understand. He made an error for them. It works for all of them, except for a woman, because she can go ahead. She can make a macha, right? She can go ahead and protest and say, "I didn't want to go east. I wanted to go west. So why'd you make an error for me?" So Isha Maishna. So why is the woman different? Why is the woman any different than his Bito Agdailim? Why is it different than an Eved who are Ivrim, who are Jewish, or Eved or Shivcha? So Isha Chodemela means not only a woman, but anybody who has the same halachic status as her, such as the Bito Agdailim, because they're independent, and also the Ama Ivria and the Eved Ivri. Fine. And Omar, we said, sounds like over there only if she protests. Stama nafka. But but if she doesn't make a macha, right? If she doesn't protest, then it would be okay, right? So Haktani Reisha, Elamidaita. But the Reisha says only with her consent. So my lav darmi'in. So the Lachar that says she has to say yes. So it's not good enough just to not protest. It sounds like she has to go ahead and agree. The Gemara says, no. My elamidaitam. What does it mean that with her consent, right? The ishtiku means they're quiet. Right? Because if she hears that she's quiet, that is basically an agreement, as opposed to a case where she hears and she says, no, I'm not going with you. So therefore, what do you see over here? Her consent doesn't mean she says yes, right? And her it only means that if she hears about it and she doesn't contest it, that means that she agrees. The stomach. It says over here, but what about the case where he says he makes the master, right? Whoever's in charge of them makes the error for them, right? And it doesn't say anything, right? It says except for a woman that she doesn't go out, right? In other words, she's not allowed to go ahead and use this error because she didn't agree. So Amarava Kevan Sheirvu in Kevan Sheirvu and Machui Godel Mizeh, right? If over there, right, they made an Eruv in other words, they made another Eruv. So obviously, so they didn't approve. In other words, if they make an Eruv, right, and then the master makes an Eruv, the reason why the Eruv doesn't work for them is because obviously they're going to protest that Eruv because they made their own Eruv. So obviously they wanted their Eruv to work and not his Eruv. And therefore it says over here therefore this is no difference, right? This is basically the bigger mocha. So if they made an Eruv and he made an Eruv, also his Eruv doesn't work for them. Why? Because since they made an Eruv, that's called mocha, that's a protesting. As opposed to a case if they didn't do anything, then they could go along with his, assuming that they heard about it before Shabbos and they did not protest or they did not make their own Eruv. Fine. Naya Mishnah. So Mishnah says, Kama hu shiuro. What is the shear for these Eruv Tchum? So mazon shtei sudois l'kol echad v'echad. So there should be the amount of food, right, for a meal, right, for each and every one, right? Mizona l'chol v'lo l'Shabbos divrei meir. So now we're soon going to see that they're both giving the smaller opinion. So it has a meal for during the week. A meal during the week is smaller, so therefore it's only the amount for a week. A weekday meal as opposed to a Shabbos meal. And Rabbi Huda Omer l'Shabbos v'lo l'chol. Rabbi Huda says no, a Shabbos meal is actually smaller, and therefore it's a smaller amount of Shabbos meal as opposed to a weekday meal, right? Because it will explain because on Shabbos you have 3 meals, during the week you have 2, so therefore basically you don't eat as much on your Shabbos meals because you want to leave room for that third meal. And V'zev is Kavni Lahakel. And both of them are trying to be makel. In other words, both basically Rabbi Meir and Rabbi Huda both agree that it's a smaller amount. They just argue as to which meal is smaller, a weekday meal or a Shabbos meal. Now comes the fun part. Rabbi Yechon, Rabbi Omer, Mikikar, B'Pundayam. Right? So he says, no. How large are these loaves? What is the amount? So he says, Mikikar B'Pundayam. Right? When you're buying a loaf for a Pundayam, right? And how much is that? Is a loaf for a pundayon, right? It's a time when me arba saim besela, right? When 4 sa, right, are bought for a sela, right? Then it goes ahead, and that is basically the markets, right? So if you go ahead and you look, those of you who have the art scroll, right? So it points out there's a little table, a number 15, right? There's a little table over there, just points out. It says basically a sela, right, is if you do all the math, right, it sells for a dinarim, and 1 dinar is 6 ma, and each ma is 2 pundayon. It goes back that there are 48 pundayon in a sela. Okay, there are 48 pundayon in a sela, and therefore a pundayon is 1/48th of a sela, which is a larger coin. And we said, right, that this sela, right, which is 1/48th, right, of pundayon, right, buys 4 sa of grain, right? 4 sa of grain, which we'll soon see is 4 sa is fine. Which buys 4 sa. So that was the opinion of Rabbi Yechon Broka, and now Rabbi Shimon Aimer shtei yados lekikar mishleish lekav. So he says no. He argues. He said the amount of the bread for the erev, right, is shtei yados lekikar, right, 2 parts of a loaf, right. In other words, each meal, right, is right. So 2 parts is of a loaf, mishleish lekav, right, which is right when there are 3 to a kav. Okay, so there are 3 to a kav. So it comes out. We're assuming, so it comes out over here that since it's basically a third of a kav is each meal, because 2 meals is 2/3. So it comes out that a third of a kav, right? Which there's 6 kav in a sa. So a third of the kav is what's used for the 3 meals, which comes out that it is a quarter. Excuse me, 1/9, right? Because it's 3. It's a 1/3 divided by 3, which is going to be 1/9. All right, basically 1/9 of a kav. That is the opinion of Rabbi Shimon. So he holds 1/9. And earlier, right, we said it was 1 pundayon, right, which is basically a quarter of a kav. So that one's going to be a quarter of a kav. This is a 1/9, and the Gemara is going to go ahead and try to understand this machlokes too. And chatzi lebeis hamnuga. And now a side point, by the way, whichever we just said, half the amount you need for a beis hamnuga. Beis hamnuga is basically a person who's in a house that has saras, and they rule it. And if you immediately go out, then you're then you're not. Then if you immediately go out, then not everything becomes tameh, right? And the amount in questions, if you don't, what does it mean to not immediately go out? It means to go ahead and eat a loaf of the amount it takes to eat a loaf of bread, and that would be this type of half of this loaf over here, right? That's called shias beis hamnuga, to remain in there, to be metame the begadim, right? In other words, his clothes would not be tame, it would just be him. But if he delays, then everything is tame, even not his body is tame, his clothes are tame, everything is tame immediately. And the chatzia, and half of that, in other words, a quarter of it, lifsos the gevia, right? To passel a person, if he eats the amount, if he eats this amount, and it was tameh, so therefore he becomes passel that he can no longer eat truma until he's matired himself. So 2 side points. We're just talking about size of loaves, since we're already on the topic of discussing the size of the bread used for eruv. Now, let's see the Gemara. V'kama mazon shtei sudos. How much is the bread for 2 sudos? So Amar Rav Yehuda, Amar Rav, Tarti Riftei Kriyasa, right? He says now 2 pieces of bread for the people who are poor. And Rav Ada Barava, Amar Tarti Rifta Nahar Pasia, right? 2 of the breads of the people of Nahar Pasia. I guess also they do not have large portions. And Amar Le Rav Yosef, Amar Le Rav Yosef, Rav Yosef Rei de Rava. So says Rav Yosef Rei de Rava, Avucha Kaman Svilei. Who does your father hold like? So Karameir Svilei, he holds like Rameir, who said that the Shabbos meals are bigger. So Ananami Karameir Svilei, as like Rameir, Di Rabbi Yehuda Kasha Hadarmi Inshi Rav Suvish Shechiach. Right? Person says, right? That because if he's like Rabbi Yehuda, it's a kasha, because they said on Shabbos it's very hard to leave room for good food because you eat so much. So obviously the meals on Shabbos are much larger. Now, speaking of this machlokes between Rabbi Yechon and Broka and Rabbi Shimon, right? How large was the loaf, right? So Tana says ukroivim divrei liyesh shavim, right? Their opinions are actually very close. They're very close in numbers. The Gemara says, "What are you talking about? Be dummy. How can you say it? Rabbi Yechon arba sudas lekava." According to Rabbi Yechonan, right? There's 4 meals to a kav, right? Because he says each mazon is a quarter kav, and Rabbi Shimon teisha sudas lekava. He says there are 9 sudas to a kav, i.e., each suda is 1/9 of a kav. So one is 1/4, and one is 1/9, right? That's not so close, right? 25% and 9%, I guess, is, or 1/9 is like 11%, right? Who says that's close? Some Rav Chizah say meyan shlish lechanvari. Don't say that which the first opinion was that Rabbi Yochanan was talking about, right? When it was a 1/4, right, or right, in that age it was right, because over there 1/3 of it was actually didn't go towards the food itself. It went towards the chanvani, right, the storekeeper. So he has to take some profit. So he has to sell up. So really, it's much bigger, right? So or it's larger. It's much than the right, or much smaller, because the amount you get is actually not that much, because some of that money doesn't go towards the bread. It goes towards the towards the wages. So vekati lamar tisha lamar shis. So if that's the case, if you increase it, if 2/3 of it, so instead of being 1/4, it's 1/6. So you now still have 1/6 versus 1/9. So he says, no, it wasn't that half of it, right, or 1/3 of it was the chanvani. Actually, half of it. So it was no longer a 1/4, right? If it was half of it, it was 1/4. It's double that, should be 1/8, right? Or there was 1/4, but you minimize it by a half, so now it's 1/8. So therefore, it's only 1/8 of a kav is a meal, according to Rabbi Yochanan, because half the money went towards the wages and salaries of the middlemen, and the other opinion holds it was 1/9. The kav lamar teisha lamar simni, one is 1/9, the other one says is 1/8. So that's why we said they're close. They're not exact. Well, one is 1/8. Now there's 8 meals to right, there's 8 to a kav, and the one says there's 9 to a kav, so that's very similar. So also, it's like, isn't it contradiction of Rav Chizah? First, Rav Chizah says that the wages and the overhead was 1/3, was a shlish, and now then the second opinion was it was a mechza. So like kasha, how to call yayiv balabayis tzivi? How to call yayiv balabayis tzivi? One is he give the wood. If he also gives them the wood to go ahead and bake, then it's less, because he doesn't charge as much because you use my fuel. But if not, then you have to pay for fuel and wages. And therefore, he would increase his own expenses by a half, and therefore it comes out to 1/8. And we will stop here. So Sunday, Mirz Hashem, 7:00. We will continue from over here, the bottom. Shkoyach, everybody.
Have a great Shabbos.
And enjoy the sun.